You have to say yes. If you look at the good operators, they're saying yes 9 out of 10 times. It's not that customers are always right. It's that when you say yes, you're inviting business in. You're inviting people to spend money. You're opening up for the possibility of more revenue.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Today in the show, I welcome back Ben Leventhal. He's the founder of Blackbird, which is a digital platform that is enabling restaurants to tap into hospitality in the coolest way. I always love having Ben in the studio. He's the founder of Resy. You may have heard of that. He's the founder of Eater. You may have heard of that. Ben is such a leading light in our world today and has so many thoughts on current restaurant culture. Of course, he has restaurant picks, but we also talk about how Blackbird is innovating in a very, very crowded space. It's really fun having Ben back, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. Ben Leventhal, welcome back to This Is Taste. Great to see you.
Good to be here.
You're a three-timer club.
Oh, it's incredible.
Well, I appreciate you coming back and talking about the evolution of Blackbird. I think we have some nice. Our last interview was one place Blackbird was in, but then you're at a brand new place almost a year later, over a year later. Before we get into it, though, I ask a lot of guests, and I'd love to get your take. Where are you dining out right now in New York? What's exciting you in this busy fall season?
Well, I mean, the new ones are Parcel. Has been great.
Yeah.
The new Parcel is awesome.
Super awesome.
Leventhal is a grand slam. I think those guys knocked it totally out of the park. They threaded the needle perfectly in terms of making that place feel like it's been there for 100 years.
Yep.
But at the same time, it feels very fresh. And so I've really enjoyed my meals there. And then I go back to my staples, Thai Diner, Isodi, Creature Habit.
There's always a Minetta McNally restaurant in your rotation, I'm sure.
Less so these days, but yes.
Have you checked out the memoir? Have you gotten your hands on it?
I haven't.
It's a lot of interest. I had Sam Sifton in here. He's trying to get a copy as well. I think we all are trying to get it if it's even done.
You never know with Keith, but I'm sure when it comes out, it will be explosive.
It will be. His gram is still a must follow for many reasons. You don't have to go sign to that one. Remind us, for our listeners who maybe are unfamiliar with Blackbird, and we've linked to it in our newsletter on Fridays many times, and you have a great content arm, but you're a technology company, and we talked a lot about hospitality in the last conversation, but remind us what you're up to right now with Blackbird.
Blackbird is a loyalty and payments company. We're specifically focusing on the restaurant industry. Of course, it's where I am in my element, and of course, an industry that I think needs a lot of help. Loyalty and payments, because restaurants don't have good ways of connecting with their guests. And I think that the platform that we're building is the key to unlocking that. We want to give restaurants tools that allow them to connect with their guests, to get them coming back, and to have an understanding of what that costs. And so that's what we're building.
We talked last time about there's a version of this that could be it's like the card that has the stamps every time you go, and on the 11th stamp you get something free. Now, in our current age, these things don't typically work. How are you emboldening your clients, your restaurants, to connect in this very busy world? I mean, there's obviously some freebies thrown in, but there's probably a little more than just that.
Yeah, so I think restaurants don't have in their muscle memory just yet the ability to naturally settle into loyalty, meaning they don't do a lot of the things that we're thinking about reflexively, instinctively. And so as we've built Blackbird, what we've really been focusing on is making the process of building loyalty and deploying loyalty feel easy and turnkey. And so for some restaurants, that just means points. It just means when you show up, you earn fly rewards, and you can then spend those rewards. Other restaurants are thinking about loyalty in a more nuanced or bespoke way, and they are thinking about tiered membership programs and specific gifts on specific visits. But I think at the end of the day, that's for a select few. And when we talk about loyalty at scale, what we're talking about is giving restaurants a rewards currency to spend to get customers and to get them coming back.
And you talk about Fly, and that actually serves almost as like a version of USD, right? I mean, you can actually use that to pay some of your bill. Tell me a little bit about how you evolve from just giving you 20% off or $20 off because you've been there 4 times, which is great. And we haven't had that, so that's awesome. But like, what else can you do?
Well, we're talking right now, Blackbird having met a key milestone, which is that we shipped our payments product, which includes Pay with Fly. So you can now use Fly, which is our rewards currency, as cash in any of our restaurants. You can spend it instead of USD, you can spend it alongside USD. And so I think we've given customers this very liquid, very useful thing to do with points. And what we'll see next is how restaurants start to deploy that and start to think about that as acquisition currency, as retention currency. But it's an important milestone for us because it makes loyalty very simple. It doesn't have to be particularly specialized. It doesn't have to be particularly nuanced. We all understand what cash back means.
Absolutely. We also know about airline miles with our credit cards, and we know that if you sign up, you get $60K, and you got people covering that industry. And obviously, you founded Resy, which everyone knows about, and so you're obviously a leading light in technology in restaurants. I mean, do you see a reality where you visit a restaurant for the first time, and then you get like a bonus Fly for just checking in and buying a meal there?
100%.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think once the technology becomes there's less friction there, right? And more people have the app. I mean, how are you getting people who don't have the app, who walk into one of your restaurants? How do you introduce them to Blackbird in the restaurant?
Yeah, this is obviously something we have to get good at.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing okay with that so far. We have really good and really exciting growth that we're seeing. But a lot of it is using restaurants as a marketing tool, quite frankly. I mean, a lot of people obviously are coming through restaurants day in and day out, and they'd be very happy to earn points if they knew it was an option. So a lot of it happens at the point of arrival at the restaurant, and we're partnering with our restaurants to encourage people to download and discover Blackbird.
So you've got, I know Upside is the one comes to mind, is you've got like literally a wooden brick that you kind of check in, you kind of slide your phone over this. It could be, they use wood, it could be other materials, I'm sure. Is that how you kind of check in, or can you do it as just through your reservation? Can you link your reservation with Blackbird?
Well, we have an integration with OpenTable Live, and so we are doing some of that on the back end. But the check-in puck is the primary connective tissue tool that we have when customers show up. We've experimented with some other things. When you're paying the check, if you've checked in, your friends can join the check without using the puck. We want that check-in to be as seamless and frictionless as possible. I think you'll find that over time we evolve from the NFC puck to a variety of things that all create that digital handshake.
I love how you've potentially avoided the QR code with the puck.
I think we are pretty QR code shy.
Yeah, man.
I think there's a couple of spots where they're still pretty useful and they're probably the right form factor, but I would say it's not what we're leading with.
I like it. I like what you're saying. I think we have too many QR codes in our restaurant world. I'm not saying in the world in general, because it's very helpful for like voting, like to sign up to vote, use a QR code. I love that, but yeah, no one wants a QR code menu either. Like fuck that. No. How many restaurants do you have right now? And I know you just announced that you're exiting, or not exiting, you're expanding outside of New York, other markets.
We aren't getting into specific numbers. But what I can tell you, and listeners can go back and do the math, but since we last spoke, we're about 20x in terms of restaurant population. So we're growing really fast, adding restaurants at a pretty good clip now. And our next 2 markets are going to be San Francisco and Charleston.
That's very cool. Obviously, San Francisco makes a lot of sense. It's a major 5. It has a rabid restaurant scene. But Charleston, when I saw that, I was like, huh. In a good way. We were just down in Charleston earlier this year and did a great, I love Vern's. Place is dope. Let me ask you, why Charleston?
It's a great restaurant town. And I think we want to be every place that there's great restaurants, where people love restaurants, which ultimately means everywhere in the world. But
right.
But as we think about priorities, Charleston punches above its weight class in terms of restaurants. It is a city of awesome restaurants. It is a city where the restaurant culture, the restaurant energy is fantastic. The operators, the guests, the the physical spaces are amazing. And so we're excited to possibly be there precociously, but it's a great place to dine out, and so here we are.
I mean, yeah, there's haters everywhere. I mean, some would call anyone precocious for entering a market as old schoolers, but I think you obviously are helping restaurants acquire customers, and that's a big part of it. Can you announce your partners in Charleston right now?
We have, Brooks's restaurants. We have places like Melfi's and Leon's, and we have the Daily, and lots of others.
Awesome. So Brooks writes, that is, and he writes a great Substack, by the way, on the side, but he's going to be on the show hopefully this year, maybe next. We have a lot of folks in the industry listening to the show, and thanks for listening to those guys. What do you have to say to the operators, the chefs, the folks who are looking to open, and it doesn't have to be restaurants, I'm sure, bakeries, cafes, coffee professionals. What do you say to them to kind of join the Blackbird team?
What we say primarily, and what I would say to any operator directly, and I say to lots of operators directly, is I think the restaurant technology industry is at an interesting crossroads. I think that we have some very, very large players where we're seeing a bloated functionality and where we're starting to see them overlap onto each other. And I think it is very dangerous for restaurants right now to lean in too aggressively to any of those platforms, because there's a shift in leverage that's happening, and it's slipping away for restaurants. And when you look at products like Toast and like DoorDash, which I think, to be fair, are for the most part well-meaning, I think that's changed over time. But I think when you look at those companies today, I think everyone has become aware that you can't really build predatory software and expect to win. And so I think that they are, for the most part, well-meaning, but they're colliding. And so you're going to start to pay for the same thing twice or three times. You're going to start to have less negotiating power when it comes to pricing. And you're going to find yourself with continuously eroding margins. And so I think we have to be very careful. I think this is a moment for restaurants to take a pause, to take a breath, and to figure out how to change some things up. So I'm not even exactly talking about Blackbird right now. I'm talking generally about what a good operator should be thinking about. The good news is that over the last 10 years, I think operators have gotten savvy with respect to how much their brands can matter and how much monetization of a brand, which is something we've talked about before, can be a part of the plan. And for the big guys, this has sort of come naturally. When you look at how Simon Kim does this, or the major food group guys do this, it's part of the plan now. But the average restaurant must start thinking this way, and must start thinking about their relationships to tech companies in a way that is much more directly beneficial to them. We can't have restaurants passively signing contracts with these humongous companies and think it's going to go well. It's not. It's not.
It's not. And you mentioned a POS software, Toast. You mentioned a food delivery software, a DoorDash. It could be Uber Eats. It could be any of those guys. And really, that's not what Blackbird does. But you have a general comment about technology companies that are using predatory fee escalation and clearly eroding on bottom line, which is the name of the game. I'm really curious, too, about brand building and love to get a little sense. I know David Chang, in the depths of the pandemic, did a great podcast about this, about how he was thinking about moving outside of just in the four walls of his restaurant. CPG is huge for him now, and it's like the leading force of that brand. What are you seeing right now in the Simon Kims of the world? How are they leveraging brand?
Yeah, well, so just to set one thing clear, to be clear, I don't think those companies are purposefully being predatory.
You said that. You were very clear.
I want to not be on the record
nodding to my statement.
But when you think about how the savvy operators are positioning themselves, you have, Simon Kim making deals in places Las Vegas where he's not building restaurants himself. He's got partners that are providing most of the capital for these projects. He gets to be in a much more straightforward way, kind of a storyteller, a creative person. He gets to craft these restaurants as he wishes. He's also doing things like, I was just noticing the product placement he had at the U.S. Open was 10 out of 10. I mean, that is the most savvy restaurant product placement maybe I've ever seen.
Explain it. I wasn't familiar.
He's got his new fried chicken restaurant, Cocoduc. I had a concession at the Open. He did a beautiful box for it. He put 3 or 5 pieces in there. I didn't get to the Open this year, so I didn't get to try it, but I saw it all over Instagram and everywhere else. He's got his concession. He's got a beautiful box for it. And he got his boxes in every box to every celebrity, and they're in every photo. Look for the Cocoduc box now. You'll see it. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful example of how savvy he is and how restaurants should be thinking about themselves in terms of brand positioning and monetization and leverage.
Love that example, and big fan of Simon here, and we had a great interview a few months back. Speaking of storytelling and kind of leveraging that when growing a business, you guys do a pretty good job of that. And I want to transition to talking about the Burger League of New York, which is cool. And you are the commissioner. I know you're a big Yankees fan and you're a big sports fan, so you obviously are tipping to that a bit. But that's clearly, I would say, related to what you're saying. Tell us a little bit about this, because I think it's quite cool.
So the Burger League of New York is a Blackbird membership club. We invite members to taste a different burger around New York City every week. We pick the restaurant, we pick the date, and then we convene to taste the burger. You can bring a friend, and over the course of the year, you can attend one or potentially all of the meetings that we have of the Burger League of New York. But these are our favorite burgers, and we're excited to break bread with our members and taste them.
So these are physical meetings?
These are physical IRL meetings.
And you're there every week?
The commissioner is not there every single week, but I'm there a lot.
True. Like Adam Silver at the NBA is not at every game, but he is you're like the overall, like the godfather, the guiding force of this thing.
Listen, as you noted, I'm a sports fan, and I understand the gravity of being the commissioner, so I am taking it very seriously.
Ben, let me ask you about burgers, and I love the choice. I mean, we could see this in the world where we're doing it with pizza and with tacos and with sushi, but you're kicking this off with burgers. Why is this food so special to you, and especially in New York?
I think burgers is a food that people feel passionately about and that resonates so deeply, because burgers are one of the few foods where you don't really have to have any background culinary knowledge or information to know whether the burger is good or not, to know whether you're tasting a great burger, an okay burger, or a bad burger. And a lot of foods, you sort of need some culinary context or some culinary sophistication to understand, is this the way this is supposed to be? Are these flavors the right flavors? Is this texture the right texture? Is this pasta cooked the right way? But burgers are universal, and so everyone gets to have a take. And I think that makes people excited and engaged, and it is what drives that passion for burgers.
Yeah, well said. I think we also just grew up on fast food burgers, most of us, and I think we obviously have a real entry level. We had a Happy Meal when we grew up, but we had a Shake Shack growing up, and well said. I agree. I think pizza would probably be the next one for me, but there's so many different styles of like what is Neo versus Chicago, Detroit. Back to burgers as a commish. Big choices. Your first few restaurants this year. What did you end up going with? Which burgers?
Well, I mean, very big choices and very big responsibility. This past Monday, we kicked it off at Diner in Williamsburg.
Yes.
Which is a classic, a stone cold classic.
They sell like 70% of their orders are burgers there, I'm sure.
Great burger.
Yep.
Right down the middle. It's an execution burger. It is not a concept burger. We are going to Gothenburger Social Club, which is a newbie on the circuit, and we'll have a meeting of the Burger League there. We'll be at Au Cheval and La Roque and lots of other places.
These are great choices, and I think you're kind of like spanning geography and styles. What's like a concept burger to you, and do you like them? Because I feel like you maybe don't.
I think concept burgers are a good part of are important in the canon.
Okay.
There's two kinds of burgers. There's execution burgers, which are burgers that are great because of perfect execution. You put the bun and the accoutrement and the condiments and the meat and the cheese together, and it's got structural integrity, and from a flavor standpoint, it's a symphony. That's an execution burger. A concept burger is, for example, the Raoul's burger, which is an au poivre burger with brie cheese. It doesn't have to be executed perfectly to resonate as a burger, as a great burger. And in fact, lots of people call the Raoul's burger one of their favorites. It's just, for me, it's the sort of one of one. And that makes it a concept burger.
Do you go plant-based at all with this burger, League of New York?
I don't think we have any plant-based burgers. We asked Brooks to participate, and I think he gave us the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
But it's not that they don't belong in the category.
I love that you are open-minded about that. I think it's really cool because plant-based has its own category, and of course there are execution plant-based and there are a more concept plant-based. So I was just on the Throwing Fits podcast, had a great time with those boys. We talked about Blackbird, which I said I really liked, and we also talked about Frog Club, which I said I really didn't like. I wonder, in terms of Frog Club, what are your thoughts on this curious restaurant in New York?
I think Frog Club, and if you ask Liz, I think she'll cop to this. I think it came in a little hot. First of all, it's almost impossible to open a restaurant with that much hype and that long a period of anticipation and meet expectations. I mean, it was coming soon, and it was hyped as the opening of the season, I think, for 4 seasons. It was a long time.
It was. I mean, they were paying rent pre-pandemic.
So I think she sort of positioned herself in a way where she was almost inevitably going to underdeliver based on what people were expecting. I also think, as a restaurant now, you don't come in as hot as you once could. I was trying to think about what is an example of a restaurant that's come in as hot as Frog Club and done well. And I think, and it has to be it's got to be a little neighborhood spot. I think you'd have to kind of go back to Waverly.
Yeah. When
John DeLucci and Sean McPherson took it over, which is, I think, 20 years ago. It's got to be almost 20 years. I think, it's 06, 07, something like that. And you'd have to go that far back to find a restaurant that came in quite that hot and is still around. So I think she set herself up to fail out of the gate, but I also think now she's licking her wounds. She's taking a much more humble, straightforward approach. And I do believe that will become a neighborhood staple.
Well, I love your optimism, and Liz is once again invited on the show. I've invited her. She's declined. I'll say what I said on Throwing Fits, and I know that episode's behind a paywall, so it might not be repeated if you listen to both shows. I love Liz Johnson as a chef. She's so talented. I was a huge fan of Mimi doing that modern bistro food downtown well before its time. Had her food at Freeman's in LA. I really enjoyed that as well. Respected her going over to Catbird Seat. Know she was at Noma as well. And of course, I've not been to Horses personally, but I've heard amazing things about Horses over the years. I know they have two new chefs there. And so it's not at all a knock on Liz Johnson. Liz Johnson is a talented chef. And I love what you said about coming in hot. I think it just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and kind of blending this idea of like the private club versus the open restaurant, and having like a real, having real guardrails around it. And the $1,000 Kiss a Chef thing is ridiculous. But anyways, I didn't mean to go in there. I wanted just to say I didn't want to be all negative about Liz Johnson, because I know she's super talented. But Ben, what's the food like there? Like you like it?
I think the food is fantastic.
Great.
By the way, they are a Burger League of New York participating restaurant. I think the burger there is a real sleeper.
Great to know. Liz, come on the show. Let's talk about it. Ben, let me ask you about New York. I think New York is a city that has everything, really. We talk about it all the time. But also, there's white space here. There's a lot of people who love going to restaurants, and you are very tapped in. What could New York use?
I think it's actually been a while since New York had a new blockbuster restaurant. I think we're probably due for a big boy. And I hope that one comes soon. I mean, I was thinking back, to Resy's 2022.
That's what I was thinking right away. I was like,
Coat
that's
is 2018.
yeah,
Polo Bar is turning 10 this year.
yeah. Wow,
Crazy.
what a run there.
And I don't think we've had that kind of blockbuster in a long time. I mean, 425, JG's new place, is certainly a big swing.
You could say La Rock is a little bit of a swing.
I think La Rock is a little bit of a swing, but it doesn't have and doesn't aspire to have the kind of wattage of a Coat or of a Teresi. But I think that's what we're due for. I'm ready.
Yeah, I am as well. I love these. I thought Teresi, when I had Rich on the show, I was like, this reminding me of like Spice Market, the early days, like these big, bold, brash restaurants. I'd love to see more. They're really fun to cover in the job that we do here.
It's interesting, just to interject on Spice Market. It's an interesting way to think about how things have changed, because Spice Market actually is reopening this year as Margot.
In the space in the
in
meatpacking.
the space with JG as the chef, but it's a private club.
Interesting. So that space is reverted back to a restaurant.
In a matter of speaking, it has.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Love that news. I didn't know that. I want to ask you a little bit about broad strokes about just dining out in New York and in any city, really. And I'd love to get your take on, what's a great rule for diners to be the best guest possible?
Be nice.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Just be nice.
Is that nice with like paying 25-30% gratuity, or is it just like, what's a good?
Sure, but it doesn't have to be. I think just some baseline civility and generosity of thought goes a long way. And I don't think there's anything that matters more.
Yeah. Thank your server. Just thank him. Just say something.
Just be cool.
Human.
Be human.
Agree fully. On the flip side, as I said, we have a lot of industry listening to the show. As an operator, what's a great rule to be the best operator?
Say yes. You have to say yes. If you look at the good operators, they're saying yes 9 out of 10 times, maybe 10 out of 10 times at some restaurants. It's not that customers are always right. It's that when you say yes, you're inviting business in. You're inviting people to spend money. You're opening up for the possibility of more revenue. And that's obviously the key to this business.
Yeah. And saying yes means a lot of different things, right? It's obviously accommodating a large party when maybe you can't. It's accommodating dietary restrictions, which is par for the course.
It's saying yes to a four top when you don't think that you're going to quite have enough room for a four top.
Yeah.
Everyone is going to be fine. It's going to work out. Restaurants are these games of Tetrises. And by the way, I'm not saying you have a 20-seat restaurant, don't double book it, but say yes. It's a much better strategy.
Leads to my next question, Ben. I think I'd love to get a sense. Are you going to write a book? I feel I love to hear your story about New York and about founding Eater, founding Resy, founding Blackbird. Phil, Mr. Gadara, gets a lot of press for his saying yes approach. And Ben, what do you think?
I'm proud to have built a career of a kind, essentially as a hype man for restaurants.
Yeah.
And I think most of my success has been by empowering restaurants to do their best and be at their best and to see around corners. When we started Eater, everyone knew a half a dozen TV chefs. And now the world of restaurants is as mainstream as it gets. And with Resy, there's tools we built and things we did to massively shift how restaurants think about themselves and how the tech industry relates to restaurants. And hopefully we're doing similar things at Blackbird. But I don't know. I don't know what the book would be, but maybe it'd be some stories of great restaurants doing awesome things.
I think, we don't need to go whiteboard mode here, but let me encourage you. We are sitting in Penguin Random House, and we'd love to have you. And I think you just have a lot of great stories about those early media days. And of course, restaurant operators, you talk to them all the time, and they've got great stories through your lens and through your journalism. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Speaking of media, we've talked on our previous episodes about your take on food media, and I think you always have a really great point of view. I know you're a fan of food media, and you certainly read a lot. what right now excites you model-wise? I mean, I know this is not your business, so maybe it's a little bit of a stretch asking this, but I'd love to get a sense of what you're seeing in the food media space, be it legacy media, and either at this point I'd call it legacy, which is kind of crazy. I mean, Substack is not legacy, and lots of great food writing on Substack, but obviously monetization is at the core of it. What is your take on it right now?
Yeah, I think that premium content is an interesting business and a compelling one. I think people should be paying for more content when they feel passionately about it. And so I do like the more niche publications that maybe are paywalled, or if not paywalled, but are sort of harder to find, that you have to seek out. When Pete Wells stepped down earlier this year, we did some thinking on critics, and as Blackbird, the content company, do we have a take on this, and how do we think about this? And I think one of the things that struck me about him stepping down was it was useful to think about Pete Wells's role and the role of the critic in the context of where content is going and what AI is inevitably going to do to content. And the thing that I think is very exciting about specialized, high quality content is that I don't think it's hard to imagine that will continue to be crucial to tell the algorithms and to tell AI how to think about things. A good critic, in essence, is good because they break their own algorithm. And they do the things and they say the things that an AI platform wouldn't be able to think of. And that's so important in anything, but we're talking about food and we're talking about restaurants, so let's keep it in the category. It's so important to how we think about restaurants and food and how we understand them and explore them and discover them. And so I think whether it's big time critics, and I think you and I agree that we hope that they will be around long after we're gone, or it's more specialized content writers or producers that are not doing critical stuff per se, I think that they're so important. And so I am sort of compelled and interested in exploring and leaning into those kinds of publications.
Really, really smart stuff, Ben. Thank you for sharing that. I just will add that I think, the general restaurant goer in our country is going to frankly just look for the AI lists. And so like Google and all the other companies are just spitting out lists of categories, and really like the local city guides are dead because of AI. They're like the first to fall, and
it's over for the city guides.
It's over for the city guides, and I've said that many times. It's kind of getting over for that recipe aggregation sites too. The Dotdash Merediths of the world really are in a world of hurt, and same with Condé. I mean, when you're searching for recipes, I mean AI is going to absolutely crush that. So I'm with you fully in that when you talk about specialized, meaning less output, more handcrafted, and getting beating the machine, so to speak, and getting a real substantive take on a restaurant through a paid critic, or is it culture reporting that is done so well at Eater and other publications? They are going to beat the machine. It's just getting the wider audience to also recognize it and maybe pay a little for it, either via paywall or supporting the ads that surround that content. I think that's the biggest challenge we all face in food media, is that, the money is going to not really flow into these sites because the traffic won't be there because AI is going to be taking it all.
Yeah, look, I think if we're comfortable with $32 burgers, which in big cities we are, then we should also be comfortable with $2 a month for, good food content.
Absolutely. So support your Substacks and pay the paywalls, and really I appreciate that sentiment fully. And AI is a really, really important element for food media. It's not just for other elements of our lives. So I like that you brought that up in a good way. Last time we spoke, we talked about your restaurant ephemera collection.
Yeah.
You got your grails on eBay. You're collecting menus and ephemera. I love that. I actually think that's a great book too. Just saying on the side. And you're pulling out.
I brought something for you.
For me.
Well,
to share. I was going to say, you're not going to give me a grail. We're doing show and tell here.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're holding right now.
So this is a Teddy's ashtray. Teddy's is a restaurant that used to exist at 219 West Broadway in Tribeca. And this is a recent find. And there's a couple things about this that I love. One is Teddy's became El Teddy's.
Mm.
And 219 West Broadway, which is not a restaurant anymore, was a restaurant for 100 years.
Wow.
And this is I believe this is from the version of the restaurant where it was sort of a high wattage steakhouse, which I don't think people generally know about Teddy's. Everyone remembers El Teddy's, which was the version of it after Teddy's, which had the Statue of Liberty crown on the roof.
Oh, yes. I've seen photos of this place. Yes.
So this is the restaurant. This is an ashtray from the restaurant that came before El Teddy's. And the reason that El Teddy's is named El Teddy's because it was named after Teddy's, which was in the space before.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure the first version of Teddy's was also called Teddy's. It was a German restaurant. I'm pretty sure this is from the steakhouse era. I have to do a little bit more research because you'll notice that the phone number is 7 numbers. I think we would have to go back to the alphanumeric if it was the previous version. I think this is when we started using all numbers. You know, it used to be 2 letters and then 4 numbers. So I think it dates to that era. And of course, I love it because you know, it's an ashtray.
Yeah, it's an ashtray.
There used to be smoking in the restaurant.
Right. Yeah, and it's got this great like caricature of a bear. I think
Teddy. It's Teddy.
It's Teddy, and it's kind of menacing in the best way. And I love that you have your eye on restaurant history. And I think what Alan did and Tammy at Grub Street with their throwback issue for New York Magazine previously. I hope more restaurant throwbacks and lookbacks happen in New York. Such a great topic.
Totally.
Ben, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid-fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. The best fruit.
Mango.
The worst vegetable.
The worst vegetable is, I'm going to be controversial and say kale.
Wow, my man. I mean, there's backlash.
Eggplant.
Okay, let's first tap into kale. What's not good about kale?
The texture.
Yeah, it's challenging.
What is this kale charade?
Yeah, there's something happening that maybe it made us feel healthy back in the day. Eggplant, it's a tough hang.
It's a tough hang.
The best dessert.
The best dessert is tartufo.
I love that choice, and explain it for our audience.
Tartufo is an Italian dessert. It is ice cream in the middle, chocolate shell on the outside, and there's cherry and I think usually some crunchy stuff in the middle. It's just a great combination of flavors.
I feel the major guys have done it a few times at their restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. I love that choice. Okay, your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
I'm not going to name names. I can't.
Okay,
I love
3.
all my children the same.
I know you do, but there's got to be 3 that like you just really enjoy.
My neighborhood spots are Isodi, Barbudo, and this lovely little coffee shop on the corner of 10th and West 4th, St. Jardim.
So tell me about what makes these neighborhoody for you. I mean, I feel like stylistically there's some comparisons. Obviously, there's a geographical link to it, but why do they connect with you?
They connect with me because I feel comfortable and at home there.
Yep. Familiarity goes so far.
Yes.
In our restaurant dining world. Ben, give me a restaurant that you want to visit in the world. What is the number 1 restaurant that you've not been to but is on your list?
Gosh, I would have to say, I mean, the place that I want to visit, it's in New York. I've really been hearing great things about Demo.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to go to Demo.
I love that choice. And Demo is fall preview stuff has been nice for them. And it's one of those restaurants that has a lot of potential.
I agree.
Ben, your most epic restaurant day in New York as of late, meaning you visited several spots and you just felt like it flowed perfectly.
Well, we were doing some promo videos for the Burger League. And so in a day, I was at Diner La Roque and Au Cheval. And and that was a bit of a heavy lift, but
Yeah,
it certainly was
right.
epic. And unfortunately, before that, I had lunch at Thai diner, so it was quite a day.
Your favorite indie retail shop in New York for food?
I don't do a lot of food shopping, is the truth. I would say SOS actually in the East Village.
Oh, right on. What do you buy there? What's the spot?
I buy my pepper there, and I'll generally buy a handful of other spices.
I like it. Your favorite cookbook of all time?
My favorite cookbook of all time, the one that I go back to a lot is Seven Fires. And I also find that Andrew Carmelini's Italian cookbook, the first one,
Mm-hmm.
is incredibly useful and the recipes are easy. And I also use the Via Carota cookbook a lot. And the Frankie's cookbook has got amazing basic practices and tools and tricks and recipes.
And I love that book too. It just has an incredible point of view with design elements,
Definitely.
illustration, cover. It's beautiful. Do you have a favorite recent cookbook discovery?
I'm not up on cookbooks, I
Yeah.
have to say. I am an avid cooker of food, but I generally just riff on the same things over and over again. And I'm not a real recipe follower as a standard practice. But it's not that new, but there's a cookbook called Serving New York, which was like a compilation
Yeah.
that I think is 3 or 4 years old now. And there's a frittata recipe from the King team that's a banger every time.
I got to check that out. So what's in the rotation for these in the Leventhal household for recipes for cooking?
Well, we do a lot of, I have 2 young kids, so some of it is very down the middle, but like a grilled chicken Caesar. But we really do like a good like Sunday night pasta where something is cooking or sautéing in a pan for quite some time and gets married with some noodles at the end. We've just come out of tomato season, so some sun golds and some olive oil and garlic with some herbs. Throw those on low heat for an hour. Throw some noodles in. You're in a good spot.
That's my one. I add sardines sometimes too, but I love a sun gold slow cook.
Mm.
Great call there. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Paris.
So why so? What's going on there for you?
It's an incredible restaurant culture there. And the thing that's different about Paris, and it's so important, is in Paris, it's much easier to live close to your restaurant. So you have smaller, passion-driven restaurants with happy restaurateurs and happy chefs. And they stay small and they stay limited and they stay true to what they are. And it makes it an incredible food city. Places like Mocha Nuts, you don't have those in New York.
I gotta get there. That's come up recently in conversation. Mocha Nuts is a great call. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
My favorite sandwich is chicken parm. Growing up, I was eating baked ziti in a hero sandwich, which I certainly can't do anymore. But
love that move. The double carb does not when you're 17 years old. The
carb on
don't
carb,
watch it. Yeah.
no consequences. But no, chicken parm.
Love that. Ben Leventhal, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste. So, Liza, we're back. We're talking about fall cookbooks. We're not calling these the best or the greatest. We're not using superlatives. We're kind of just reviewing what we're excited about. We've seen some of these books in PDF form, in physical form if we're lucky. Others, we've kind of just gotten a sense of the style of cookbook from the descriptive copy. But really, this next category is a really cool one. You named it.
Yeah, I named it Cuisines and Cultures, which I think is maybe an imperfect name, but I love the alliteration. So that's always a good place to start. And I think what we're trying to get at is this very large and expanding and exciting category of books that are from authors that are spotlighting different like cultural techniques or cuisines. Maybe the author is American, maybe they're not, maybe they're kind of talking about food that is in between different cultures, but the goal of the book is to be kind of sharing a different cultural tradition and like transporting you somewhere as well, maybe.
What a great category. Well said, Eliza. It's not easy to make these categories sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun for us to get to look at all of the books and think about how to group them together. But
Yeah.
the reality is that there's a million different ways we could talk about all of them. And one of the first books that I want to talk about today is called The Contemporary African Kitchen, Home Cooking Recipes from the Leading Chefs of Africa. And I'm just so excited about this for so many reasons. The first is that Alexander Smalls is the main writer and editor on this book. He's a James Beard Award-winning chef, author, and restaurateur. He co-owns the Harlem restaurants The Cecil and Minton's. And he also is a world-renowned opera singer. He has a Grammy and a Tony. I don't know if you know this about him, but he's just the most impressive. And I think the lineup of chefs that he has contributing recipes are also really impressive. There's friends of the show like Eric Ajapong, who has a recipe representing Ghana, and Pierre Thiam from Senegal, but also lots of other cooks as well. And I think that is just going to be a real cornerstone of anyone's cookbook collection.
Yeah, Alexander is an incredible talent. I got to go to his apartment once for a book party and got to know him a little bit better. What an amazing guy. And really, when he pulls his friends and fans together for a book, it's going to be really a special one. So glad you called that out. My first one is Panchan, 60 Korean American recipes for delicious shareable sides by Caroline Cho. This speaks to me. I've written Korean cookbooks myself, and really I've known Caroline for a while and really just respected her point of view. She's an artist. She's an educator. She lives in New York City, so we've been able to hang out a few times. But I have to say, doing a Panchan book, I've thought about this category, and it's extremely difficult to write. And she's done such a terrific job because Panchan isn't really a single thing. It's not just the namu, the seasoned vegetables that are there, the kimchis. There's a whole category of soups and tongs that come out of the panchan on the panchan table, and she's done such a great job by offering creativity and really offering new ideas in the Korean American vernacular. And I love it. She has a couple of these recipes that just jump out initially. She's a smoky gochujang chicken salad. She's a hobokjeon, a zucchini pancake with peppers that I really love, and a kimchi potato salad. And I think Caroline is really one of our most talented recipe developers, and she's really done a terrific job. It's not a big book. It's nice and slim in the way that you want to have it on your counter, and just you want to make some kolbik jim with a couple of these creative sides. It's kind of doesn't feel like it's only panchan. It's almost like a Korean for home book that I really want to cook from.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. The next one that I want to talk about is called Wafu Cooking by Sonoko Sakai. And this is another example of what I would consider to be a really well-respected and regarded cookbook author coming out with something new. Sonoko Sakai first wrote a Japanese cookbook in the U.S. in 1986, which I think is such a different landscape of where we're at now. And Wafu literally translates to Japanese style. So it's the Japanese take on foods that originate in other parts of the world. So she has dashi cheese grits with honey miso butter. She has a miso apple pie, lots of things like that. And it's kind of combining these flavors and ingredients and techniques. And it kind of speaks to her own background. She grew up between the United States, Mexico, and Japan. And so while she's previously done Japanese home cooking style books, I think this is kind of true to her experience and also the way that a lot of people seem to eat in Japan. So I'm really excited about that one.
Can't wait to try those recipes. My next one is My Egypt, Cooking from My Roots by Michael Mina. We've had Michael on the show when we did this Las Vegas series. He's an acclaimed chef from San Francisco, New York City, and Vegas. And he's written cookbooks about his own style of cooking, which leans more Mediterranean, I would say. But really, this is a book that he's been working on for, I would say, around 10 years. I've been hearing about it. Kate Leahy is one of his collaborators on the book, and I've heard it on her great podcast. She's talked about it a bit, Everything Cookbooks. Now, this is all about Egypt. It's a place that he lived for only 2 years of his life, and he immigrated to America with his family. So he recognizes that he didn't grow up around Egyptian food, but he is a real scholar of the game, and he's really gone back to Egypt for a lot of influence in his restaurants. And this is the book that he goes back and cooks with family and friends and really travels the country and offers so many great ideas in recipe writing from the Egyptian point of view. We're going to have him hopefully back to talk about it more, so I want to leave it there, but it's such a cool book. What's your next one?
My last one that I'll talk about is called The Chinese Way. It's by Betty Liu. Her family is from Shanghai, but it's kind of a kaleidoscope of different Chinese techniques and also some Chinese American techniques. One of the things that I look for in a cookbook is if it's kind of organized in an interesting way. And I really like the organization of this book. She breaks it out. Well, she has a pantry section that's broken out by different flavors like sweet, salty, spicy, tangy. And she gets into really good detail about like look for something that has like this region of origin on the label, like how to navigate that. But then also the book itself in terms of the recipes, there's a braising section, a frying section, a steaming section. So you can kind of choose one technique and work your way through that and learn different iterations of it from there. And I just think it's something that I want to cook a lot from.
I can't wait to check it out. I have 2 more from this category. And again, we're going to be profiling many more books in the coming months. But this one speaks to me. More set of kitchen recipes and stories from a modern Pulian farmhouse. Now, I've gone to Puglia as part of our Taste Travels, or I'm going back in September. So I've gotten to spend some time there. And really, this is the debut cookbook from Georgia Eugenia Gogi. She's a resident chef of a design-led restaurant and hotel called Morissetta's Kitchen. At the Masseria Morissetta, masserias are throughout Puglia. They're like, it translates to farmhouse, but this is like a new style of dining. You go to a farmhouse. It's kind of agroturismo style of cooking. And really, I love everything I've seen in Puglia. But when I went to Puglia for the first time, I tried to find a book to research Puglia. So I kind of knew what I was talking about when I was there for the first time. I couldn't really find it. And so I wish this book was there when I was there, when I was visiting there previously. The chapters are organized by season, and I like that a lot. The book is really, it's a little more chefy. There's like a lamb and mizuna dish with mustard seeds, and there's a cool tomato toast. So I don't know if I'm going to cook a lot from it, but I'm going to learn about Puglia and the way this farmhouse restaurant operates. That spoke to me. And my last one is classic German cooking. The very best recipes for traditional favorites from, okay, we're going to get into some German pronunciation here. I'm going to do my best. Semmelknödel. That's not even right. I'm going to do this again, but we're going to keep this take because it's going to, you're feeling it with me as I'm going to it. Semmelknödel to Sauerbraten. All right, Louisa Weiss, I'm really sorry I did that, but I'm going to say some more German words. Louisa Weiss, classic German baking author, former columnist and journalist, and really a terrific resource for German cuisine. And these are 100 of the best, most emblematic recipes of German Austrian home cooks. And really, I like learning about German home cooking because I don't know too much about it. And I think that I'm going to continue with my pronunciation journey. Rinder Holden, braised beef rolls, you're laughing.
Sorry.
Korkofluff, fresh cheese souffle. I'm really sorry, Germans out there.
Korkarlfloof?
Yeah.
I'll get in it too.
And Knuner fricassee, chicken fricassee. And then there's an authentic Viennese goulash. And finally, Alpine Kirmknödel, plum butter stuffed steamed dumplings. I'm not trying to be funny here. I like that there's German language in this book. Like, we were actually not trying to strip it down and make it more Americanized. We're actually making it German. So I hope, Louisa, if you're listening, you're not offended by my pronunciation. Hope to have you on the show. This book looks terrific, and I can't wait to cook from it.
I can't wait to cook from it, and I can't wait to have Louisa tell us how to pronounce everything.
We'll have definitely a little bit of a fact check there.
It'll be great.
Thanks, Liza.
You too.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com. And make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.